You really think anyone's going to believe two pretty girls over badge-carrying cops? This town runs on our word, sweetheart. Officer Derek Cole's voice cuts through the Friday night buzz at the Rusty Anchor like a blade through silk. His thick fingers drum against the scarred wooden table where twin sisters Emma and Grace Morrison sit frozen in their booth. The overhead lights catch the police badge still clipped to his belt. A deliberate display of power, even though he's 3 whiskeys deep and technically off-duty. The bar's usual 11:47 p.m. crowd has gone quiet. Conversations dying mid-sentence as Derek's bulky frame towers over the twins' table. His partner Tommy Banks leans against the adjacent booth, wiry and predatory, his eyes tracking every micro-expression on the women's faces like a snake watching mice. Emma Morrison's fingers instinctively curl inward, covering the jagged scar that runs across her right hand. A practiced motion she's performed 1,000 times before. Her twin sister Grace sits perfectly still beside her. Identical auburn hair catching the amber bar lights, same emerald eyes that usually sparkle with laughter, now cold as winter glass. They're 29, successful, celebrating Grace's promotion at her marketing firm with overpriced cocktails and sisterly gossip. Or at least, they were until 2 minutes ago. "We're just having a quiet drink, officers," Grace says, her voice steady despite the way Tommy's gaze crawls over her fitted dress like he's appraising livestock at auction. Derek slides into their booth without invitation, his substantial weight making the old leather creak in protest. "Ladies' night out." His breath reeks of bourbon and entitlement. "Or are you working girls looking for customers?" Tommy laughs, an ugly sound that makes several nearby patrons shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Definitely working. Look at those outfits." Behind the bar, Jake Morrison, no relation to the twins despite the shared surname, begins recording on his phone with trembling hands. He's seen this dance before, knows how it ends when Derek Cole decides he owns someone's evening. The way Emma's muscles tensed under Derek's gaze, that wasn't fear coursing through her veins. If you caught that telling detail, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Because what unfolds in the next 30 seconds flipped this entire night upside down. And if stories of courage against corruption move you, that thanks button helps us bring more of these buried truths to light. Quick question, while Derek's still invading their space. Where in the world are you watching this unfold? Drop your country below. I'm genuinely curious how far stories of injustice travel in our connected age. Derek's meaty hand lands on Emma's shoulder, and she goes rigid. Not with fear, but with something far more dangerous. Calculation. Her scarred hand taps a specific rhythm on the table. Morse code spelling out one word. Record. Grace's phone, hidden beneath her designer purse, goes live on Instagram without fanfare. 847 viewers join the stream in 12 seconds, though neither cop notices the subtle red recording light. "How about you girls come party with real men?" Derek's fingers slide down Emma's arm with deliberate slowness, testing boundaries like a predator testing electric fence. Emma's voice drops an entire octave, each word precise as surgical cuts. "Remove your hand." Tommy pulls out his handcuffs, spinning them around his index finger like a gunslinger's revolver. "Or what? You'll call the cops?" Both officers erupt in harsh laughter at his joke. The tension ratchets higher with each passing second. The bar's atmosphere has transformed from Friday night relaxation to something thick and dangerous. Several patrons quietly gather their belongings and slip toward the exit, unwilling witnesses to what's clearly about to escalate. Old Walter, a 73-year-old regular who's nursed the same beer at this bar since the Reagan administration, watches from his corner stool with growing disgust. His weathered hands grip his cane until his knuckles turn white. Derek grabs Emma's wrist, her scarred hand specifically. And that's when everything shifts like tectonic plates before an earthquake. "You're coming with us," he announces loudly enough for the entire bar to hear. "Solicitation and assault on officers. That's a lie and you know it." Walter's voice cracks across the room like a whip. Derek's head snaps toward the old man. "Sit down, Gramps, or join them in lockup." Walter sits slowly. But 5 other phones throughout the bar are now recording. The digital age has made everyone a potential witness, though Derek and Tommy are too drunk on power and actual alcohol to notice. Emma whispers something to Grace. Just 2 words that make her twin's eyes widen with sudden understanding. Protocol 7. The arrest unfolds with practiced brutality. Derek yanks Emma to her feet while Tommy grabs Grace, both women's hands twisted behind their backs as metal cuffs click into place. The entire bar watches in stunned silence as 2 successful young women are perp-walked toward the door for the crime of rejecting unwanted advances. Jake Morrison's hands shake as he continues recording, capturing every second of false arrest. Later, this footage will matter more than anyone in this room could possibly imagine. In the patrol car, Tommy can't resist taunting his captives. "Nobody's going to believe you," he says, adjusting the rearview mirror to leer at them in the back seat. 2 drunk girls at a bar versus decorated officers? This is going to be the shortest trial in county history. The radio crackles with routine chatter. A domestic dispute on Maple Street, a traffic stop near the highway. But then something unusual cuts through. Federal building emergency frequency. Urgent chatter about the Riverside bombing case that's dominated national headlines for 3 months. Emma's scarred hand clenches involuntarily. Tommy notices the movement, follows her gaze to the radio with drunken curiosity. "What? This scare you? Big federal case got you nervous?" He laughs, turning up the volume. They're looking for some woman with a scarred hand, caught on camera at 3 different bomb sites. Probably some terrorist. Grace shoots Emma a warning look that speaks volumes, but Derek has already noticed something in the rearview mirror. "You know, now that he mentions it," his eyes narrow as he studies Emma's reflection. "That's an interesting scar you've got there, sweetheart." The police station at midnight feels like a tomb with fluorescent lighting. The booking room smells of disinfectant and despair. Sergeant Patricia Williams, 52 years old with steel-gray hair and a reputation for by-the-book procedure, looks up from her paperwork with barely concealed irritation as Derek and Tommy parade their arrests inside. "Let me guess," Patricia says, her tone dry as dust. "2 more women who mysteriously assaulted you after rejecting your advances." "Just process them, Pat," Derek snaps. "Solicitation and assault." Patricia's eyes narrow, but she begins the paperwork with mechanical efficiency. She's tired of Derek's cowboy antics, but knows challenging him means challenging the entire power structure that keeps him protected. Emma makes an odd request as Patricia takes her fingerprints. "I need you to run these through AFIS, the federal database, not just local." Patricia laughs without humor. "Why would I do that?" "Because in approximately 3 minutes, this station is going to be surrounded by federal agents, and you'll want to be on the right side of what's about to happen." Derek slams his fist on the booking desk, making everyone jump. "Enough games! Process them and throw them in holding." Emma holds up her scarred hand, the overhead lights making the damaged tissue shine like silver. "Run. The prince." Something in her tone, authority wrapped in absolute certainty, makes Patricia hesitate. Against her better judgment, she enters the prince into the federal system, while Derek paces behind her muttering threats. The computer beeps once, twice, then displays a screen that makes Patricia's face drain of all color. This says classified. Priority flag. It says, Emma's entire demeanor transforms in an instant. Her shoulders straighten. Her voice drops into a register of pure command. Agent Emma Morrison, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, badge number 7429. Operation Blackwater. 3 months deep cover tracking explosive supplier Marcus Webb. The room freezes, like someone hit pause on reality. Derek laughs, but it sounds forced and nervous now. Bullshit! You're lying! Emma continues with machine gun precision. Supervisor Richard Hayes, Denver office. The scar on my hand? Shrapnel from the Riverside Courthouse explosion. I was inside when it detonated, trying to stop it. I've been hunting the supplier ever since, and the trail led straight to this town. Patricia's computer screen confirms every word. The FBI database shows Emma's photograph with a priority flag that makes Patricia's hands tremble. Operation Blackwater. Do not compromise. Tommy's frantically trying to delete something on his phone, and Emma just caught him in the act. Here's my question, and I want your honest take in the comments. If you were in Emma's position right now, would you push for that phone immediately and blow your entire cover? Or would you play the long game and let them dig their own graves deeper? What would you do standing in that booking room with your whole operation hanging in the balance? Grace speaks for the first time since their arrest, her voice carrying its own kind of authority. I'm Agent Morrison's handler, Department of Justice liaison. We've been tracking illegal weapons flowing through this town for 6 months. Tommy's phone slips from his sweating hands, clattering on the linoleum floor. His face has gone pale as old paper. No, no, no. This isn't happening. The door bursts open, and Chief Robert Mitchell strides in, all swagger and authority, until he sees the federal database screen. His expression cycles through disbelief, recognition, fear, and finally, desperate calculation in the span of 3 heartbeats. Well, well, Emma says, studying the chief like a specimen under glass. We were wondering when you'd show up. We know about your connection to Marcus Webb, Chief Mitchell. Those weapons that killed 3 federal judges? They came through your evidence locker. The revelation hangs in the air like a guillotine blade. Patricia backs away from everyone, her hand moving instinctively to her service weapon, suddenly unsure who in this room she can trust. Chief Mitchell tries to regain control. No one will believe you. 2 girls in a bar, drunk, assaulting my officers. That's the story. That's what the evidence will show. Emma's smile could cut glass. Grace's Instagram live stream? 47,000 viewers and climbing. Jake Morrison's bar footage? Already uploaded to 3 separate cloud servers. And Tommy's phone that he's so desperately trying to wipe? She gestures to the device on the floor. It's been backing up to your station server this entire time. Tommy lunges for his phone, but Patricia's foot comes down on his hand. Not hard enough to break bones, but sufficient to stop him cold. Nobody moves, she commands, surprising everyone, including herself. Derek's hand moves toward his service weapon. Everyone just calm down. Emma's scarred hand taps her watch 3 times. A gesture so small it might be missed, but its implications are enormous. That's the panic signal. My team has been listening to every word through the wire I'm wearing. They're already moving into position. Outside, the night explodes with sound. Squealing tires, helicopter rotors, boots on pavement. A voice cuts through on a megaphone with military precision. This is the ATF. The building is surrounded. All personnel remain where you are. Patricia draws her weapon, but instead of pointing it at the twins, she aims directly at Chief Mitchell. You know what? I've been collecting evidence for 2 years. Internal Affairs wouldn't listen because you buried every complaint. But I bet the feds will be very interested in what I've documented. The chief's face twists with rage and desperation. You don't understand what you're doing. This goes deeper than you know. Tommy cracks like an egg under pressure. It was Derek's idea. All of it. The weapons, the judges, everything. He said we'd be untouchable. Said the chief had connections all the way to... Chief Mitchell moves faster than anyone expects. He grabs Derek's gun from his holster and shoots Tommy in the shoulder. Not fatal, but enough to drop him screaming to the floor. The gunshot is deafening in the enclosed space, leaving everyone's ears ringing. Mitchell just shot his own officer with Derek's weapon. Tommy's bleeding on the booking room floor, and federal agents are 10 seconds from breaching every door in this building. But here's the thing about that scar on Emma's hand, the one detail that started this entire cascade. It's about to become the most important piece of evidence in federal court. Keep watching, because the real twist isn't just who's guilty. It's who's been recording every single transaction, every meeting, every confession from the very beginning. The truth runs deeper than anyone suspected. The federal agents flood in like a tactical tsunami. Special Agent Richard Hayes personally puts Chief Mitchell in cuffs while medical teams rush to Tommy's aid. Derek tries to run, but Patricia trips him with her extended foot. He falls face first, his nose breaking with an audible crack against the linoleum, blood pooling beneath his face. Emma kneels beside him with mock concern. Oops! Scarred hands aren't great for catching people. She helps him sit up, ensuring his blood doesn't contaminate the crime scene, all while Hayes reads him his rights. Grace opens her laptop, which Patricia hadn't even noticed she was carrying. The screen fills with file after file: audio recordings, video surveillance, financial documents. Every conversation in the Rusty Anchor for 6 months. Every weapons deal discussed. Every judge's name mentioned weeks before they died. She clicks on one audio file, and Derek's drunk voice fills the room. Those 3 judges won't be a problem after Tuesday. The timestamp shows Monday. The Riverside bombing was Wednesday. Patricia stares at the evidence with a mixture of horror and vindication. Everything she suspected, but couldn't prove, is laid out in digital clarity. 2 years of careful documentation suddenly has context, support, federal backing. Tommy, from his position on the floor with EMTs working on his shoulder, breaks completely. I'll testify. I'll tell you everything. 17 officers are involved. 3 city councilmen. There's even a congressman's aide who... Chief Mitchell's face has gone gray as ash. You have no idea what you've done. The people involved in this, they don't leave loose ends. Emma stands, brushing imaginary dust from her clothes. Neither do we. The interrogation room at the federal building feels different from the police station. Cleaner, colder, more permanent. Emma sits across from Derek Cole, who looks considerably less intimidating in orange jumpsuit and shackles. His broken nose is bandaged, both eyes blackened from the fall Patricia orchestrated with surgical precision. Special Agent Hayes stands in the corner, arms crossed, letting Emma take the lead. She's earned it after 3 months undercover, 3 months of watching these men destroy lives, while she gathered evidence one conversation at a time. Let me paint you a picture, Derek, Emma begins, spreading crime scene photos across the metal table. 3 federal judges murdered. $15 million in military-grade weapons disappeared from evidence lockups across 4 states. And at the center of it all, Marcus Webb, ghost arms dealer, phantom supplier. She taps one photo with her scarred finger. Except he's not a ghost, is he? He's Tommy's cousin, Derek's lawyer. A nervous public defender barely out of law school clears his throat. My client doesn't have to answer. Your client is looking at 3 counts of conspiracy to commit murder of federal officials. Emma cuts him off. Each carrying life without parole. But sure, he doesn't have to talk. Tommy's already singing like a church choir, and Chief Mitchell, well, he's trying to make his own deal as we speak. Derek's jaw clenches, sweat beads on his forehead despite the room's Arctic air conditioning. I want immunity. Hayes laughs from his corner, a short, harsh sound. You shot at federal agents. There's no immunity fairy for that. Grace enters carrying a tablet and a box of physical evidence. She sets them down with deliberate care, each item making its own statement. Derek, I've been recording every conversation at the Rusty Anchor for 6 months. That includes the night you told Marcus exactly which judges were investigating the weapons pipeline. You remember? February 18th, 11:37 p.m. You'd had 6 beers and thought you were being subtle. She plays the audio. Derek's drunk voice fills the room. Judge Martinez, Judge Thompson, Judge Chen, they're the problem. Martinez especially, she's like a damn bloodhound. Someone should do something about that. Marcus Webb's voice responds. Someone will. These judges threatening your thing with Mitchell? Our thing, Derek corrects. The chief's got the pipeline, but I'm the one who makes sure the right weapons disappear from evidence. The recording continues for 17 more minutes. Each word another nail in Derek's legal coffin. His lawyer has gone pale, frantically scribbling notes that won't help. Emma leans forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell us everything. Every officer involved, every weapon moved, every bribe paid. In exchange, we'll recommend 25 to life instead of 3 consecutive life sentences. That's the only deal on this table, and it expires in 60 seconds. Derek looks at his lawyer, who shrugs helplessly. The evidence is overwhelming, undeniable, recorded in his own voice across dozens of conversations he thought were private. It started 3 years ago, Derek begins, his voice cracking. Mitchell came to us, me and Tommy, said there was an opportunity. Weapons would come through evidence, we'd mark them destroyed. But actually move them to Webb. Webb would sell them, we'd get 20%. Names, Emma demands. Every cop involved. Derek starts listing them. 17 officers across 3 precincts, each one carefully recruited by Mitchell. Each one dirty enough to trust but not smart enough to threaten his leadership. Patricia Williams, listening from behind the one-way mirror, recognizes every name. They're all officers she'd tried to report, complaints that mysteriously vanished from internal affairs. Meanwhile, in the federal courthouse 6 blocks away, Chief Robert Mitchell sits with his high-priced attorney. Not court-appointed, but paid for with money that investigators are still tracing through shell companies and offshore accounts. Prosecutor Sarah Brennan, 41 years old with 15 years of putting away corrupt cops, slides a plea agreement across the table. Life without parole, but you allocute to everything. Every murder, every weapon, every bribe. Full cooperation, or we seek the death penalty for the murder of 3 federal judges. Mitchell's attorney whispers urgently in his ear, but Mitchell waves him off. You don't understand the scope of this. It's not just local cops moving guns. This goes up to... A knock on the door interrupts him. An FBI agent enters, whispers to Brennan, who smiles like a shark scenting blood. Interesting development, Chief. We just arrested Congressman Peter Dalton's aide, Jonathan Rivers. He's already talking about how you funneled weapons to militia groups in exchange for political protection. Mitchell's face loses what little color remained. I want witness protection. You want a lot of things, Brennan responds. Start talking, and we'll see what you deserve. Back at the Rusty Anchor, the bar has become an impromptu celebration and wake combined. Jake Morrison pours free drinks for the regulars who've gathered to process what they've witnessed. Old Walter sits in his usual corner, shaking his head in disbelief. 53 years I've been coming to this bar, he says to anyone listening. 53 years of watching cops shake down good people, plant evidence, destroy families. Tonight's the first time I've seen someone fight back and win. Jake sets down his bottle, pulls out his phone showing the recording that now has 12 million views across various platforms. Emma asked me to record everything starting 6 months ago. Said she couldn't tell me why, but that it would matter. Every night those cops came in, talking about their crimes like they were untouchable. I got it all. A young woman at the bar, Maria Santos, raises her glass. My brother did 5 years for drugs Derek planted on him. 5 years stolen because he refused to pay protection money for our family restaurant. Others start sharing their stories, each one a testament to years of systematic oppression that everyone knew about but no one could prove. The FBI has set up a tip line, and it's been ringing non-stop for 6 hours. Hundreds of victims finally have hope that their truth will be heard. The news breaks nationally at 10 p.m. Eastern. Massive corruption scandal. Twin federal agents expose murder-for-hire scheme involving police, judges, and Congress. Anderson Cooper leads with the Instagram Live footage. 47,000 witnesses watched Emma and Grace Morrison get arrested on false charges, never knowing they were watching federal agents in action. The clip of Derek saying, "This town runs on our word," has become the soundbite that defines the scandal. Rachel Maddow focuses on the political angle. Congressman Dalton's aide revealed that weapons from the pipeline were being sold to extremist groups in exchange for political donations and muscle during elections. The congressman himself is under federal investigation, his office raided, his career destroyed in a single news cycle. Fox News, surprisingly, takes the law enforcement angle. How did corruption this deep take root? How many other departments have similar arrangements? Their investigative team is already uncovering comparable patterns in 13 other cities. Patricia Williams, now acting chief of police, holds a press conference at midnight. She stands at the podium where Mitchell used to spread his lies, but her presence is different. Honest, tired, determined. "For 2 years, I documented corruption I couldn't report through proper channels because those channels led back to the very people committing crimes," she begins, her voice steady despite exhaustion. "I watched good officers get transferred, threatened, or worse for speaking up. I watched criminals with badges destroy our community's trust. That ends tonight." She announces immediate reforms. All evidence handling will be federally monitored. Body cameras that cannot be disabled. Citizen oversight committees with actual power, and a complete audit of every case Derek, Tommy, or Mitchell touched in the last 5 years. "Some will say, I should have done more, spoken up louder," Patricia continues, her voice dropping. "They're right. I was a coward. But these 2 agents," she gestures to a photo of Emma and Grace, "showed me that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what's right, especially when you're terrified." Tommy Banks lies in his hospital bed, shoulder bandaged, FBI agents posted at his door. His lawyer, also court-appointed but more experienced than Derek's, has negotiated a different kind of deal. Tommy will testify against everyone in exchange for 15 years, possibility of parole in 10. Marcus never meant for the judges to die, Tommy insists to the federal agents recording his statement. He just wanted them scared, wanted them to back off the investigation. But Mitchell said dead judges can't investigate anything. He paid Marcus an extra $1 million to make sure they didn't survive the bombings. He provides bank records, encrypted communications, even video from a hidden camera he'd installed in Mitchell's office for insurance. Footage of Mitchell counting money, discussing murder like ordering pizza, laughing about how untouchable they all were. Emma watches from behind one-way glass as Tommy details every crime, every victim, every life destroyed for profit. Grace stands beside her, both sisters processing the magnitude of what they've uncovered. "You know the hardest part?" Emma says, her scarred hand pressed against the glass. "We could only watch for 6 months. How many people suffered while we built our case? How many lives could we have saved if we'd moved sooner?" Grace puts her arm around her sister. "We saved everyone who comes after. That has to count for something." 3 weeks pass in a blur of grand jury testimony, evidence processing, and media coverage that refuses to die down. The trial of Chief Robert Mitchell begins on a Tuesday morning with crowds gathered outside the federal courthouse. Survivors of his corruption holding signs with photos of family members who didn't live to see justice. Emma takes the stand first, her scarred hand clearly visible as she raises it to take the oath. The prosecution leads her through the investigation methodically. How she'd survived the Riverside bombing. How the trail led to weapons that could only have come from police evidence lockers. How she'd gone undercover with Grace as her handler. "Tell us about the night at the Rusty Anchor," Prosecutor Brennan requests. Emma's testimony is precise, clinical. Derek Cole and Tommy Banks approached us at 11:47 p.m. They were intoxicated, off-duty, but made sure their badges were visible. When we rejected their advances, they escalated to physical contact, then false arrest. This was consistent with patterns we'd documented. They specifically targeted women who wouldn't be believed over police officers. The defense attorney tries to paint Emma and Grace as rogue agents, exceeding their authority. But the evidence is overwhelming. Jake Morrison's footage, the Instagram Live with 47,000 witnesses. Patricia Williams's 2 years of documentation. Tommy's testimony from his own plea deal. It all builds an inescapable picture of systematic corruption. Grace testifies next, focusing on the financial trail. We tracked $2.7 million from weapons sales into accounts controlled by Mitchell, Derek Cole, and 17 other officers. The money was laundered through a construction company owned by Mitchell's brother-in-law, then distributed as overtime pay and performance bonuses. She shows the jury spreadsheets, bank records, forensic accounting that traces every dollar from dead judges to beach houses and boat purchases. One juror actually gasps when she reveals Mitchell bought his mistress a Mercedes with money earned from weapons that killed Judge Martinez. Derek takes the stand as part of his plea agreement. Orange jumpsuit replacing the uniform he'd worn like armor. His testimony is devastating to Mitchell's defense. Names, dates, amounts, specific conversations where Mitchell ordered violence against anyone threatening their operation. The night before Judge Thompson died, Derek testifies, voice flat with defeat. Mitchell called me, said, "Thompson's getting too close to our thing with the evidence locker. Webb knows what to do. I knew he meant the bombing, but I didn't try to stop it. I was making $50,000 a month from our cut. That judge's life wasn't worth losing that money to me." The courtroom sits in stunned silence. Even the court reporter pauses, fingers frozen over her keys. This is evil admitted without excuse, greed acknowledged without justification. Marcus Webb has been captured in Mexico, extradited, and now testifies via video link from federal Supermax. His appearance causes a stir. Not the hardened criminal mastermind everyone expected, but a 34-year-old who looks like an accountant, speaks softly, seems almost confused by how far things escalated. "Mitchell came to me through Tommy, my cousin," Webb explains. "Said he could supply military-grade weapons, stuff that usually only goes to conflict zones. I had buyers, he had product. It was just business until he started talking about judges. I said we should just move operations, but Mitchell insisted dead judges sent a stronger message." The prosecutor asks the crucial question, who pulled the trigger on the judges? Webb doesn't hesitate. Mitchell provided their schedules, their routes, their security details. I provided the bombs, but Mitchell chose the locations and timing. He wanted maximum casualties to send a message. Don't investigate cops in his town. Mitchell's attorney tries desperately to discredit every witness, but the evidence is insurmountable. When the verdict comes back, guilty on all counts, Mitchell doesn't react. He sits frozen, perhaps finally understanding that his word no longer runs this town, or any other. Sentencing comes 2 weeks later. Judge Patricia Hawthorne, brought in from another circuit to avoid any appearance of bias, doesn't mince words. "Robert Mitchell, you betrayed every oath you took, every citizen you swore to protect. You turned law enforcement into organized crime, murdered those who sought justice, and destroyed countless lives for money. I sentence you to life in federal prison without possibility of parole, to be served consecutively for each of the 3 murders, plus 480 years for the additional charges. Derek gets 25 to life, eligible for parole in 20 years if he continues cooperating. Tommy, from his wheelchair, an infection having complicated his shoulder wound, receives 15 years with possibility of parole in 10. The other 17 officers receive sentences ranging from 5 to 20 years, depending on their level of involvement. The congressman's aide, Jonathan Rivers, gets 12 years for facilitating weapons transfers to extremist groups. 6 months after the verdict, Emma and Grace Morrison sit in a committee room in Washington, D.C., testifying before Congress about the systemic failures that allowed the corruption to flourish. "This wasn't about a few bad apples," Emma tells the assembly, her scarred hand visible as she gestures. "This was about a system that protects those bad apples, that silences whistleblowers, that values blue loyalty over justice." Patricia Williams tried to report the corruption for 2 years. Every complaint disappeared. Every piece of evidence vanished, because the system protected itself. Grace adds her analysis. "We've identified similar patterns in 17 other cities. The same structure. Evidence lockups used as weapon supplies. Judges and prosecutors threatened or eliminated. Money flowing through construction companies and local businesses. This is a national crisis requiring federal intervention." Their testimony leads to the formation of a federal task force with unprecedented powers to investigate police corruption. Within a year, 43 more officers across 12 states are arrested using methods Emma and Grace pioneered. Patricia Williams has transformed the local department. She hired 22 new officers, all extensively vetted, all required to live in the communities they police. Crime hasn't increased despite the arrests. In fact, it's dropped 30% as citizens start trusting police enough to actually report crimes. Jake Morrison rebuilt the rusty anchor with a small shrine to justice in the corner. Newspaper clippings of the arrests, a photo of Emma and Grace, and a simple sign. Sometimes the smallest details change everything. Old Walter still drinks his same beer in his same corner, but now he smiles more, talks to the young officers Patricia hired, shares stories of the bad old days as warnings rather than inevitable truths. Maria Santos's brother got released after his case was reviewed. The drugs Derek planted were finally acknowledged as false evidence. He's in college now, studying criminal justice, planning to become the kind of cop Derek never was. The Riverside Bombing Memorial now includes a plaque honoring Emma Morrison, the agent who was inside trying to stop it, who bears the scar of her service, who turned trauma into triumph. 3 judges died that day, but their deaths ultimately exposed the corruption they'd been investigating, completing their work posthumously. Congressman Peter Dalton resigned in disgrace, is under federal investigation, and faces potential charges for accepting donations from extremist groups in exchange for political protection of the weapons pipeline. His career is over, his legacy destroyed, his name synonymous with corruption. On the first anniversary of the arrests, Oak Ridge holds what media calls Justice Day. Not a celebration, but a remembrance. Victims of the corrupt cops speak publicly. Their stories finally heard, their truth finally validated. Tommy Banks, serving his sentence in federal prison, sends a letter that Patricia reads at the memorial. "I don't expect forgiveness. I destroyed lives for money, stayed silent while people suffered, helped murder judges who threatened our income. I'm writing this so other cops know. The money isn't worth it. The power is temporary, and the badge doesn't make you untouchable. It just makes your fall harder when justice finally comes." Derek Cole refuses all interview requests, maintains his innocence despite overwhelming evidence, and spends his days in solitary confinement. His fellow inmates have made clear what they think of cops who planted evidence and destroyed families. Chief Mitchell was found dead in his cell 8 months into his sentence. Officially suicide, though many suspect the extremist groups he'd armed didn't appreciate him turning state's evidence. His death closes one chapter, but doesn't erase his victim's pain or undo his crimes. Emma Morrison still carries the scar on her hand, that small detail that started everything unraveling. She works now training federal agents in deep cover operations, teaching them that sometimes the smallest observations crack the biggest cases. Grace Morrison heads a new division focused on police corruption, using the methods she and Emma developed to identify and infiltrate corrupt departments before they metastasize into murder-for-hire operations. Their story becomes required reading at Quantico, a case study in patience, courage, and the power of irrefutable evidence. The Instagram live stream that captured their false arrest has been viewed over 100 million times, a permanent record of the night two women refused to be victims and instead became catalysts for justice. 3 years later, Patricia Williams is still chief, still fighting to rebuild trust between police and community. She keeps a photo on her desk from that night in the booking room, not of the arrests, but of the moment she decided to point her gun at Chief Mitchell instead of the Morrison twins. The moment she chose justice over job security, right over rank, truth over the thin blue line. The Rusty Anchor has a new tradition. Every Friday at 11:47 p.m., Jake Morrison raises a toast to the twins who flipped everything, and the whole bar drinks to justice served cold, served late, but served nonetheless. Some nights, Emma returns to the bar, sits in the same booth where Derek first approached them, and watches new patrons who don't know the history, don't realize they're sitting where justice began, with two women refusing to be victims. She thinks about the judges who died, the families destroyed, the years of suffering that could have been prevented if someone had acted sooner. But she also thinks about Maria Santos's brother in college, about the 17 cities where corrupt cops now face justice, about the message sent to every badge-wearing bully. Your word doesn't run anything anymore. The scar on her hand aches sometimes, especially when it rains. Phantom pain from shrapnel that doctors removed 3 years ago. But Emma doesn't mind the discomfort. Scars, she's learned, are just reminders that you survived something that tried to destroy you. And sometimes, just sometimes, surviving is the first step toward justice. Grace finds her there one Friday night, 3 years and 6 months after their arrest, sitting in that booth with a whiskey she's not drinking. Without words, Grace slides in beside her twin, and they sit together in comfortable silence. Two women who faced down corruption, and one who turned a small detail into a massive victory, who proved that sometimes the truth is stronger than any lie, no matter who's telling it. Outside, Oak Ridge continues its slow healing. A town learning to trust again, citizens learning to speak up again, police learning to protect and serve again. It's not perfect. Healing never is. But it's better, and getting better still. One small detail at a time. Jake Morrison approaches their table with the bottle of whiskey, ready to pour, but Emma covers her glass with her scarred hand. That same hand that started everything. That small detail that flipped their world. Not tonight, she says, and Jake understands. Some anniversaries you celebrate, others you simply survive. As the clock strikes midnight, marking another day of justice maintained, Emma and Grace Morrison walk out of the Rusty Anchor together. Twins who refuse to be victims, agents who refuse to be silenced. Women who proved that sometimes the smallest detail can bring down the biggest lies. Behind them, the bar continues its Friday night rhythm. Ahead of them, more cases wait, more corruption needs exposing, more victims need justice. But tonight, they simply walk through Oak Ridge's quiet streets. Two sisters who changed everything because they refused to change anything about themselves. Not for Derek Cole, not for Chief Mitchell, not for anyone who thought a badge meant power over truth. The scar on Emma's hand catches the streetlight as they walk, silver and permanent. A small detail that flipped everything. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful weapon against corruption isn't a gun or a badge, but the courage to record, to testify, to refuse to be silenced. And in a town that once ran on the wrong word, that courage has finally given voice to the truth. 5 years pass, and the Morrison case becomes required study at every police academy in the nation, not just as a cautionary tale, but as a blueprint for reform. The FBI creates the Morrison Protocol, a systematic approach to investigating corruption that emphasizes protecting witnesses, documenting everything, and never moving without overwhelming evidence. Emma now runs a specialized unit that exclusively investigates police corruption. Her team has exposed similar networks in 23 cities, saved countless lives, returned over $40 million in stolen evidence. The scar on her hand has become something of a legend. Agents joke that she can spot corruption with that hand alone, though Emma knows it's not the scar, but the willingness to look that matters. Grace heads the Department of Justice's new Civilian Oversight Division, ensuring that no police department can investigate itself, that no complaint can simply vanish, that no Patricia Williams ever has to document crimes alone for years, while hoping someone will listen. The Rusty Anchor stands as more than just a bar now. It's a monument to the moment when ordinary people stopped being afraid, when cameras became weapons against abuse, when 2 women drinking whiskey at 11:47 p.m. changed the course of American justice forever. And somewhere tonight, in another bar, in another town, someone else is recording, refusing to be silenced, adding their small detail to the massive tapestry of truth that can no longer be hidden.
You are not alone. Someone wants to hear you. Share your story. Thank you for watching to the end. Please like and subscribe to Stereo.